There was a night you don't talk about. You remember the ceiling more than you remember the pain, the cracks in it, the way the light from the hallway cut a thin yellow line across the floor and stopped right at your feet. Like even the light didn't want to come all the way in. You were on the floor, not metaphorically, actually on the floor. And you cried, not the kind of crying people post about, not the cinematic single-tear, soft piano kind, the ugly kind, the kind where your body shakes and you can't breathe right and some part of you, way down at the bottom, is whispering, "This is it. This is the bottom. There's nowhere lower than this." You didn't know it yet, but that was the last time. Not because life got easier. It didn't. Not because the people who left came back. They didn't. Not because some miracle dropped out of the sky and rearranged everything that was broken. It was the last time because something in you finally died that night, and something else woke up in its place. You don't remember deciding it. That's the part nobody tells you. You think transformation is a decision, a switch you flip, a speech you give yourself in the mirror. It's not. It's quieter than that. It's uglier than that. It happens on the floor, at 3 a.m., when you're too exhausted to perform for anyone, not even yourself. That's when the real you shows up. Not the version you market. Not the version you post. The one underneath. The one that's been waiting. And that version doesn't cry anymore. That version calculates. Think about every person who ever counted you out. Replay it. The teacher who said you'd never amount to anything and meant it as a joke in front of the class. The friend who stopped texting back the second things got hard for you. Like loyalty was a seasonal subscription. The family member who compared you to someone else at dinner. Out loud. Like you weren't even sitting there. The partner who left when you needed steadiness the most. Who timed their exit for the exact moment you couldn't afford one more loss. You remember all of it. Every name. Every face. Every tone of voice. And here's the part that should give you goosebumps. They don't remember any of it. Not really. Not the way you do. To them it was a Tuesday. A passing comment. A door they closed without looking back. You were a footnote in their week. They have no idea they're living rent, free in the architecture of who you're about to become. That's the asymmetry nobody talks about. They forgot. You didn't. And that gap, that's where your entire future gets built. Pain has a property most people never learn to use. It doesn't disappear. It transforms. Energy never dies. It just changes shape. And humiliation, betrayal, abandonment, every single one of those moments you wanted to erase. That's raw material. That's fuel sitting in a tank waiting for ignition. Most people let it rot. They let it curdle into bitterness, into a story they tell at parties, into a wound they keep reopening because the attention it gets feels like care. They wear the pain like a costume. They never convert it. You're not most people. Not anymore. Not after that night. You started doing something different. Something almost nobody around you noticed, because it didn't look like anything. It looked like silence. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped narrating your plans to people who never believed in the last 10. You stopped performing your healing for an audience that was never paying attention in the first place. You went quiet, and in that quiet, you started building. This is the part where everything gets dangerous for everyone who underestimated you. Because silence isn't absence. Silence is a weapon when it's loaded with intention. While you were quiet, you were watching. You were studying the patterns. Who shows up only when you're winning, who disappears the second you need something, who flatters you to your face and erodes you behind your back. You built a map. A real one. Names, behaviors, patterns, filed away with the precision of someone who's done being surprised by people. You stop reacting to things in real time. That's the first mark of someone who's actually changing. The old you would explode the second something hurt. The new you absorbs it, processes it later alone, and only acts when it's calculated. Cold, deliberate. Untraceable back to emotion. People mistake this for being heartless. It's not. It's the opposite. It's someone who felt too much for too long finally learning how to control the output. You started training your body like it owed you something, because it did. Every hour you spent in that gym wasn't about aesthetics. It was about proving to yourself, in a way words never could, that you could choose discomfort on purpose and survive it, that you could set a goal nobody was watching you chase and hit it anyway. Discipline isn't about getting abs. Discipline is about rebuilding trust with yourself after you spent years breaking promises to your own future. Every rep was a vote. Every early morning when your body begged you to stay under the blanket was a referendum on who you were going to become. And you kept voting for the version of you that doesn't quit. You started reading things that scared you a little. Books on power, on psychology, on how rooms actually work, who holds leverage, who's bluffing, who's been controlling the narrative the whole time while pretending to be a bystander. You realize the world isn't run by the loudest people in it. It's run by the ones who understand the architecture underneath the noise. You started noticing how much of your old life was built on performance. Performing happiness for people who didn't deserve the real version. Performing confidence to mask a hole you never let anyone see. Performing okay-ness in rooms where you were quietly disintegrating. You stopped, all of it, cold turkey. And the moment you stopped performing, that's when people started getting uncomfortable around you. Not because you became cruel, because you became unreadable. You stopped giving them the reactions they were used to harvesting from you. The bait stopped working. The provocations stopped landing. You'd respond to insults with silence, to betrayal with strategy, to abandonment with growth they couldn't see coming. This terrifies people. A person who used to be predictable and is suddenly not. That's the most dangerous shift in any relationship, professional or personal. Because predictability is how people maintain control. The second you become unpredictable in your discipline, in your silence, in your refusal to explain, you take the control back. Permanently. There's a specific kind of fear that crosses someone's face when they realize the person they used to dismiss has become someone they can't read anymore. You've probably already seen it. That flicker. That half second of recalibration in their eyes when they expected the old version of you to show up, and the new version didn't even blink. Hold on to that flicker. Study it, because that's the proof. That's the receipt. That's confirmation that what happened on that floor wasn't a breakdown. It was a system update. Let's talk about what nobody warns you about during this process. Because it's the part that makes most people quit before they ever get to the version of themselves they're capable of becoming. It gets lonelier before it gets better. Not because you're pushing people away out of spite, but because the frequency you're operating on now doesn't match theirs anymore. Conversations that used to feel comfortable start feeling small. Gossip starts feeling like noise. People who only show up to complain, to drain, to borrow your energy and give nothing back. They start feeling unbearable because you finally have something to protect your own momentum. This is the part where you have to choose. Stay comfortable and keep the same circle that watched you cry on that floor and did nothing, or go quiet, go cold, go forward, and accept that some relationships were never built to survive your evolution. Most people don't make it past this point. They get scared of the silence. They mistake loneliness for failure. They run back to the comfort of mediocre relationships because at least mediocrity is familiar. Familiar feels safe even when it's killing you slowly. You didn't run back. That's why you're different. You let the silence stretch. You let the distance happen. You stop trying to convince people who left to come back and watch you build. Because explaining yourself to people who already counted you out is a waste of energy you can't get back. Let them find out later. Let the results speak in a language louder than any argument you could have made. This is where the real transformation accelerates. Because once you stop spending energy trying to be understood by people who weren't paying attention, all of that energy redirects into the only place that actually matters, the work. You start moving differently. Not faster, sharper. You stop chasing 10 things at once and start obsessing over the 1 or 2 things that actually move the needle. You start treating your time like it's the only currency you'll never get more of. Because it is. Every hour you used to waste explaining yourself, defending yourself, justifying yourself to people who never intended to understand. That hour goes into the one thing that's going to make explanations unnecessary. Results don't argue. Results don't need a defense. Results just show up one day, undeniable, and force everyone who doubted you into an uncomfortable silence of their own. That's the revenge, not confrontation. Not a speech. Not a dramatic comeback scene where you say everything you've been holding in. The revenge is simpler and colder than that. The revenge is becoming so undeniable that the people who hurt you have to watch it happen in real time, with no ability to take credit, no ability to interrupt it, no ability to do anything but witness it. You start to understand something most people never grasp until it's too late. That strength isn't loud. Strength doesn't announce itself. The most dangerous people in any room are never the ones performing power. They're the ones who've already won the war internally and are simply waiting for the external world to catch up. You start carrying yourself like that, quiet, steady, unbothered by provocation, because provocation only works on people who still need external validation to feel secure. And you stopped needing that the night you hit the floor and realized nobody was coming to save you but you. That realization is the most violent, most liberating thing that can happen to a person. Nobody is coming. Not the people who promised. Not the family who was supposed to show up. Not the universe. Not fate, not some delayed cosmic justice that fixes everything for you while you wait passively. Nobody is coming. And once that sinks in, really sinks in, past the denial, past the anger, past the bargaining, something shifts. The waiting stops, the hoping stops. The performance for an audience that was never watching stops, and building starts. You start treating every single day like evidence. Evidence for the case you're building against every doubt anyone ever planted in you. Evidence for the story you're going to tell yourself on the next hard night, when the old wounds try to resurface and convince you that nothing's actually changed. Because they will try. That's the part nobody tells you. The old pain doesn't vanish just because you started winning. It waits. It resurfaces on quiet nights, in unexpected moments, when success starts to feel real, and some buried part of you doesn't believe it's allowed to have this. That's when you remind yourself of the floor, not to relive it, to use it. You go back to that exact moment, the cracks in the ceiling, the yellow line of light that didn't reach you, and you ask yourself one simple question: did I survive that? Or didn't I? You did. Which means everything since then is just proof of capacity. Proof that you can survive what's supposed to break you and come out colder, sharper, more dangerous to anyone who underestimates you twice. This is where most transformation content stops. At the motivational peak, the highlight reel, the montage. But real transformation doesn't have a finish line. It has maintenance. It has the boring, unglamorous discipline of choosing the same hard things again and again, long after the initial pain that triggered the change has faded into memory. You have to keep choosing it. The early mornings. The hard conversations. The boundaries that cost you relationships you used to think you couldn't live without. The silence when you want to explain. The patience when you want instant proof that all of this is working. Because here's the truth that separates the people who actually change from the people who just talk about changing. Consistency without an audience. Anyone can be disciplined when people are watching, when there's applause, when there's a reason to perform. The real test is what you do when nobody's checking. When there's no algorithm rewarding you, no friend congratulating you, no proof yet that any of this is going to pay off. That's where the real one's separate from the pretenders. You became one of the real ones the day you decided the floor was the bottom and not the end. There's a moment coming. Maybe it's already happened. Maybe it's still ahead of you, where someone from your old life sees the new version of you and gets visibly thrown off. They expected the broken version, the crying version, the version that needed saving, and instead they get someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, doesn't need anything from them anymore. That moment is worth more than any apology they could ever give you. Because it's not about them seeing you win. It's about you finally seeing yourself the way you should have seen yourself the whole time. Not as the person who fell apart on that floor, but as the person who got back up without anyone's permission and built something nobody can take away. You're not the same person who cried that night. You couldn't be, even if you wanted to. That version served its purpose. It hit the bottom so the next version could push off it like a diver pushing off the floor of a pool, using the depth, the pressure, the darkness as leverage to break the surface harder than if there'd been no fall at all. So when people ask you what changed, and they will, eventually, once the results get loud enough that silence stops being an option, you won't need a long story. You won't need to relive the floor for their entertainment. You'll just say it plain, the way people who've actually been through something say things. That was the last time I cried like that. Not because life stopped hurting. It didn't. Pain doesn't disappear just because you got stronger. It just stopped having the final word. You took the pen back. You started writing the next chapter in a voice that doesn't shake anymore. And every single day since that floor, you've been proving one thing, quietly, without needing anyone to clap for it. That the version of you who almost broke that night was actually the version being built, not destroyed. Built. So if you're on your floor right now, if the ceiling is the only thing you can look at, if the light from the hallway doesn't reach you either, remember this isn't the end of your story. It's the only beginning that was ever going to be real. The polished, easy, comfortable beginnings don't build anyone. The floor does. The breaking does. The night where you finally stop performing for everyone else and meet the real, unfiltered version of yourself. That's where it starts. Let it be the last time. Not because the world gets kinder. It won't. Let it be the last time because you decide, right there in the dark, that whatever happens next, you're not doing it broken. You're doing it built. And built doesn't cry on the floor anymore. Built gets up, goes quiet, and starts working. While everyone who counted you out finds out later, the hard way, exactly what they were never paying attention to.